it's very fitting. My guest and I chose kind of Valentine's Day for a reason. So without further ado, I will give you an introduction to my special guest. She is a bookstore owner and recently opened her romance bookstore in Alexandria, Virginia, and reopened it. We will talk a little bit about why. Please welcome Jamie Fortin, who is the owner of Friends to Lovers Bookstore in Virginia. Hi, Jamie. Thanks for being here.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about books and yap and talk about smut.
Where the idea came from, and then if you want to tell us about the opening a little bit.
I told myself that I was going to open a business within 2 years when I moved here. I was like, this is going to be my home. Like I want to put down roots and like opening a business is something I've wanted to do for a really long time. And so I think I knew if I didn't put like a time on myself like that, I wasn't ever going to do it. And so I was like, it just needs to get done. And you're gonna have fun, or you're gonna be one of those people who's like, I wish I had done this at some point in my life. So, honestly, I started thinking of ideas and just like getting creative, talking to my friends about what I could do. And really, one of the first things was a bookstore, but retail everyone kind of says like the conventional wisdom is that retail isn't doing well and that people don't buy physical books anymore and blah blah blah. So it wasn't the first thing that I was like I wasn't like, oh my God, this duh, we have to do it.
Yeah.
And then eventually I would talk to my friends about having a romance bookstore. I was like, there's none here. But people are buying books. Like I buy physical books. I have a ton of them. You can't see them, but I have a ton of them. Um, I have a ton of books. Like, I know my friends all like books. We all read romance. One of my favorite romance bookstores is in my hometown, San Diego. And my friends and I go there every single time I go home to visit. And so once I started telling people about that idea, I think the people who actually enjoy romance were like, oh, duh, we need this. Like, this is a place that we would love to see.
Yeah.
I was already part of the online romance community. I was already kind of involved. I have like two or three book clubs. And I know everyone wants to start a book club, dude. Yeah, it kind of felt like something that, you know, bookstores are, I think, a really important part of community building. There's a reason people go and that so many are opening, and you can
Yeah.
see that like Barnes and Nobles, for example, are opening in like every city. Downtown DC is getting one, and it's because they're like, oh, people are buying books here at indie bookstores. Why not steal all their customers, you know? So I
Yeah.
think as I was kind of thinking about it, this seemed like a fun idea, and I started putting together a business plan. And the more I talked about it with other people who kind of enjoy this genre and enjoy these communities, the more I felt like this was the thing to do. I talked to some other bookstore owners, and they kind of gave me some advice, and then it really kind of snowballed. Like I didn't think it was going to open that quickly. So essentially, I like put on Eventbrite that we were going to open. I hired a social media manager. That was the first person I hired. And she started like hinting at the store. It immediately got tons of buzz. I think I sold like 25 tickets to the grand opening. And I maxed it out there. And it sold out within like a couple of minutes. So then I upped it to 50. That immediately sold out. I upped it to 200. That sold out within like less than an hour. And I was like, oh shit, we cannot fit 200 people in this building. I was like, oh God. And so then our opening weekend, we had a line around the block every single day. Um, and that was kind of, I was like, oh, I guess this is a good idea.
Mhm.
And then yeah, at the end of that first weekend, so we had like our soft opening the 14th of November 2024. The 17th was like that Sunday, and then that evening is when the store caught on fire. And so it just like destroyed everything, which was very much a bummer. But we
Bummer is a very light word for what
yeah.
the catastrophe was. Like I remember seeing it on social media and my me and two of my friends who are really excited that I'm interviewing you today. We were so excited to go see it. We hadn't seen it yet. Obviously, you just opened, and we all were like texting. We were like, "Holy shit, did you see the bookstore we wanted to go to is like burnt down? Like what? Like how much of your merchandise did you lose versus how much did you still have and how did that work?"
We didn't like get to keep anything. So really, honestly, none of it caught on fire. So it was all smoke damage. I think that's what, yeah, I think people like it. And I think the community's been so, I mean, anytime a community is dominated by women or queer people or people of color, it's going to be underserved because the powers that be do not see it as a
Yeah.
viable business model. I mean, it was so interesting watching like when I would tell people I'm opening a romance bookstore, I was like all happy for it, talked about it all the time at the point. And I always had men that were like, do people even read? Or like, I'm like, first of all, you will never beat the illiteracy accusations, men. Like, fuck. But, but also, like, I was like, of course, like, I'm like, is this a big enough market? You guys have giant superstores just for people who like to fish. And you're asking me
Literally.
if my store is a niche market? Like, go into Bass Pro Shop in the middle of nowhere. How do you guys fill the store with just guys who like decorations all over the walls when they walk in somewhere? Like, be serious for a minute.
Yeah, like they make fun of young, usually teenagers or young women who are like obsessing about like a boy band or like
In
any
like
kind of
fandoms.
concert, any fandom, right? And I'm like, what do you
Yeah,
think going to a football game is?
I'm literally like, you're making fun of fandom culture. I'm like, you are obsessed with it. Your parasocial relationship with this person means that like your mental stability rides on whether or not a team, which by the way, you were never gonna play for. I don't care that you sprained your ankle in high school. You were never gonna play for them. And now your like entire emotional stability rides on this team. Grow
Literally,
up.
let's get into a little bit of just the conversation around romance and romanticy, the rise of this genre, well, romanticy especially, but like the rise of romance novels and romance bookstores, and also kind of the underlying, guilty pleasure that it was.
Hmm.
And now we don't really love that term, and kind of, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the what I was thinking when you were saying a lot of people just think about those Fabio covers, I'm like, those people I don't think have like been in the same room as a woman since like their mom, which is like totally valid.
Hmm.
But like your grandma isn't the only one reading romance. Your mom was too. Your
Yeah.
mom was reading Nicholas Sparks and your mom was reading Sarah Dessen and what Sarah
Yes.
Dessen's young adult, huh? I'm like trying to think of the
Stop. You just
um
listed my two from like high school. Oh
right. I'm
God.
like, what
Yeah.
is the name of oh that author that wrote Swan Song and she wrote The Hotel Nantucket. She writes the Nantucket series.
No, I've never read.
Okay. Well, anyway, your mom's reading romance, your grandmother's reading romance, her mother's reading romance. Like
Yeah.
these are like
Yeah.
this is a genre that has been really at top of mind in American culture for centuries.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
mean, oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, just think about like how much we like rom-coms as a genre of movie, and well liked by like kind of everyone. I mean, like How to Lose a Guy in 10
mhm.
Days, Just My Luck.
And most of them are based on books.
So then why romance as a genre in any layer, any style was like not appreciated in the same way is interesting.
Yeah, and I think I mean, we see it in film too. I used to live in California, in Southern California, and men love to take like like Christopher Nolan, is that the name of it?
Yes.
They're like Christopher Nolan's the best. I'm like, and you won't even watch a Greta Gerwig film because you hate women. I'm like, just because it's popular among men doesn't mean it's better. And I
Hmm.
think that's what happens a lot in our culture is things like books. I think it's like 90% of books, like in economics, let's say, are written by men. It's probably higher in economics. That was my major in college. Or like men are usually like their top genres are like historical
Nonfiction.
nonfiction, like and philosophy. And I'm like, okay, well, that's because that's what they're reading. Like
Yeah.
they're not really reading much at all. And when they are reading, they're reading very specific genres. That doesn't make it like better
Yeah.
content to
Yeah.
read. And I think that's kind of what has caused the stigma around romance is that because women enjoy it and find it fun, it is now like trivial. But I think really honestly during COVID and TikTok being able to do such a good job at connecting people with other people like them. Um, I feel like even though some people have the stigma, it's just like easier to tune out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we can kind of bring that community to life in a way of like people can walk in and they're like, I'm not thinking about it like that. I'm just,
People, around romance as a genre, like you said, there's such a stigma, but I also think there's so many layers to it that people, because there's such a stigma around it, they kind of ignore. But like there's not just smut, which I think at
Mhm.
this point people assume that if you're reading romance, you're just reading smut. And okay, if you are, like, good for you. Have
Right.
that detailed and visualized in that way. Congrats,
Mhm.
do that. And then but then there's also just like a rom-com, or there are so many stories that people have read for years that also have a romance element to it. And there's something magical about that. Like we've been reading books for Hunger Games had a romance in it. It had a love triangle. Like,
Yeah.
let's not ignore that it
Right. Or
exists other.
trivialize it or say that like
Yeah.
these books and these stories are not good despite the romance. They're
Yeah.
good in part because of the romantic plot, because people like to see intimacy and
Yeah.
relationships. And frankly, a lot of these books that men consider like high fantasy or that they are going to prefer over other books, they have sex and they have relationships and they're not consensual, and the men don't like the women in the books. And I think some people need to take some time to look inward and think like, what about it is uncomfortable to me? Is it that like the woman is enjoying herself and has a consensual relationship? And why does that bother me? Like,
Mhm.
why is the intimacy of it all? Why is them getting along and communicating openly the problem here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because most good books have a good romantic plot in them.
That goes hand in hand with my next question, which is what are you pursuing in this chapter of your life?
I was so excited for this question because it's so cute. Um, I honestly like it's a new year, you know? I know this is
2026.
coming out on February 14th, but still New Year.
Yeah.
And I did a New Year's like bingo card.
Oh,
And it's really cute. And me and my best friend did it together. The one who gives me her car sometimes. Made like little bingo cards together. And I think I was like kind of looking at my through points there, and I think my biggest thing is I need to be able to separate my business Jamie from like my personal life Jamie. So many business owners I know end up really burnt out because their entire life becomes their business. And even when I first opened, like I would run around telling everyone where I work, and I'm just like so excited to like anytime I go into a business that I like, I'm like, "Oh, let's collab on something." And sometimes I'm like, maybe I just need to like sit at home and crochet a hat for my boyfriend and like that be and not think about how I can make money off of crocheting hats for boyfriends.
Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
Of
Thank you for
course.
being a special guest for a special episode.